Hope everyone's well. Just out on my walk today. I have to, when I come out on these countryside walks now, I have to tread carefully with this dodgy knee that I've got. But the main thing is I can get out and walk and I can get out and work. So keep your fingers crossed for me. I thought I'd do a quick video on, let's touch it on propaganda, but also I wanted to ask your thoughts surrounding, you know, where you see things at the moment in terms of truth returning to the world, how close we are to a reckoning, how that'll pan out. You know, what do you see with the people around you? Obviously, particularly with regard to those who fell hook, line and sinker for the lies. Now, we'll be doing another video soon about propaganda. Just really, what are the different facets of propaganda? What does it seek to achieve and how does it do it? It's going to be one of those videos where I make some notes. So I'm just formulating that at the moment because I find the subject of propaganda, mind control, mass hypnosis absolutely fascinating, as you know. But today's one is about propaganda, and the last video I did, if you've not watched it, again focused on propaganda and how it works and how an Overton window is created amongst the population of things that are acceptable to talk about, and how public debate, not that we have any of that anymore, how public opinion, or large scale public opinion, not applied to everyone obviously, is filtered through very narrow lenses. I think I used the examples of Brexit, Boris Johnson, COVID, climate change, Ukraine and Russia, and how the same people who are victims and who succumb to propaganda very easily believe the establishment view to the nth degree on all of those topics and others as well. Obviously other topics that are close to the heart of the establishment because they are the deep state or the regime, whatever you want to call it. They are methods to instill fear, instill behavioural change and control people's beliefs and behaviours. So propaganda, you know, obviously I use these videos to try to articulate how I see things. I try to verbalise what's going on in my head. I think I'm one of those people who, I think I'm pretty good at cutting through the crap, and I've been able to kind of like determine my own unique worldview and simplify things and clarify things. Obviously just my own take, my own unique opinion. I do observe, I try to discern, I try to pay attention, I try to listen, I try to read, I try to watch, particularly watching people, observing people, just watching what they say, what they think, how they articulate themselves, the things that they do, and then, you know, comparing that to, well, what is the mass media telling them to think and to do. So I think I'm quite good at that. You know, I think that might be a skill that I've got. But it's difficult because sometimes it's highly challenging. Well, all the time it's highly challenging to watch a world that is, to a large degree, and a society that is to a large degree capitulating, falling apart, that is confused, to the point of oblivion. To watch it and to try to then create a video and then try to give my view, because sometimes it's difficult to do that. Sometimes the madness and the insanity is of such degrees that I'm left almost confused myself, because I can't find the words, I can't find the thought processes, I can't find the clarity to be able to try to do what I do try to do, and to comment on things and to shed some light and to clarify things for other people, albeit only my take, which in an ideal world, and which I know a lot of you do, you take what I say and, you know, and then compare to, you know, what you think yourselves, what others are saying, and then formulate your own worldview. But what is it about what is it about propaganda that means that there's a section of the population that are simply unable, they are incapable, they're unable to do that, unable to listen to listen to those who have a view that deviates from the one espoused by the regime, unable to tolerate dissent. They don't find it difficult, they're simply incapable of hearing anything that's different to that which is being promulgated by the propaganda. There are still people like that. Now, so the first question is, how many are still in the grip of propaganda? For example, propaganda regarding COVID, which brings me to the point I want to make, really, in that the one facet of propaganda, and again I'll talk about this when I do a more detailed video, kind of like my own study on propaganda, is repetition. If you see a story being repeated over and over and over and over and over and over again by the media, that is propaganda. We've seen that amplified in the last few years with different topics. You know, obviously COVID, the jab, Ukraine, saw it with Black Lives Matter for a particularly insane period. We've seen it now with we saw with Dominic Cummings and his infamous trip to Specsavers. We're seeing it similarly now with Boris Johnson, a man who I despise, a man who has blood on his hands. But the way this propaganda works, propaganda always seeks to simplify the message, repeat the message, is that Boris Johnson is the only person responsible for people's misery. Most people are miserable, you know, and why wouldn't they be? Whether they understand why they are or not, most people are miserable, most people are fed up, most people are tired, most people are confused, most people are at the point of exhaustion. And the way propaganda seeks to work is to provide, well, often is to provide a scapegoat. Boris Johnson is acting as the nation's scapegoat at the moment, or that's what the powers that be are attempting to happen. They are attempting to create a scapegoat in the form of Boris Johnson. Now, my second question is that working? Are there that many simple-minded folk who really do see that one man is the reason to blame for everything that's happened, and you know, and there's no other there are no other factors, there's no other individuals, no other organisations, there's no need for any further consideration or exploration, because the propaganda that there has been in the last, it's been going on since this whole stupid Partygate, pathetic, pitiful, first broke into the news, which was well over a year ago. This has been a story, but the last week or so, we've seen possibly the most intense and unhinged and out of control propaganda that I've ever seen in my life. It's just been unbelievable. And what's the reason? Well, as I say, the reason is to provide a scapegoat for the masses. So, for example, the rest of the politicians, the scientists, and the media and talking heads who pushed complete and utter tyranny onto their countries and societies don't have to face the consequences. So, provide a scapegoat, tried and tested tactic. And the other reason is, again, those behind the screen, those puppet masters, again, they understand human psychology very, very well. Provide a scapegoat so that not only the thousands of others, or tens of thousands of others really, who are part of this evil regime who must take responsibility and in an ideal world face the most harsh justice imaginable. Not only do they not have to do that so they get away scot-free with what they've done, but also the population itself doesn't need to reflect on what kind of society it has become, and those individuals within that society, they don't need to embark on a journey of introspection and self-reflection and really understand how and why they fell for the worst lie ever told. You know, why they didn't see it, or why they didn't speak up against about it. What the propaganda that we're seeing at the moment seeks to achieve is that simply create a scapegoat and a mass distraction. and kind of like an illusion almost that what happened didn't happen in the way that it did happen, so that people move on, and so that it will happen again, and it can happen again. Now, I did a video well over a year ago. I'll put a link in the description, and I'm touching on the same topics as this because I first identified what they were doing when the stupid, pitiful, pathetic report about Partygate started filtering into, as I say, the news. It's not the news. I'll have to think of a different phrase to describe you know, what is called by the mainstream media as the news. But anyway, the video we did is in the description. I hope I remember. I always forget to drop links in there. I'll try and remember. Anyway, if I don't remember, it's called "Their disgust is not with the politicians but with themselves." Now, my question now, again, I'm asking questions throughout this. I'd be really interested to hear what you do think, is what level of anger is there in the population? Another question, where's that anger being directed to? Is it being directed to Boris Johnson by most people? Or do most people now see how this propaganda works, and they've figured it out, and they realise, rabbit over there, they realise that the scale and complexity was much greater than they first thought. So what is the level of anger in the population? Who are they directing it at? And I guess I'd love to know as well, can't remember whether I said at the start, you know, what percentage of people would you say now are on some level aware of the true reality of this world, or at some level aware that they've been fed lies, that they've been subjected to tyranny? What percentage of people are on some level aware of the path that we are on, you know, to complete and total dystopian digital surveillance? You know, what's the level of awareness? For me, I really do believe now that when it comes to lockdowns and jabs, I'm talking more about lockdowns in this video because these stories that are, well, this story about Boris Johnson that is being repeated over and over and over and over and over again is about, you know, alleged breaches of lockdown. I genuinely believe now that there's a large majority who regret who regret those years, who know they were taken for fools, who have changed their minds. A large majority, I really do. What percentage of those are prepared to discuss it openly? When it comes to lockdown, I don't know. Quite a few, probably now, I'll be honest with you. It's seeping more and more and more into the public discourse, but still nowhere near enough. You know, I would never advocate for open revolution, ever. Well, not ever, but I'm always about peaceful non-compliance, revolutionary peaceful non-compliance. What about that? I'm an advocate for, say it all the time, conversation, discernment, courage in the society, creativity in the society, conversation, as a way to deal with problems, create solutions. You know, if you had those themes are very prevalent in society, tyranny would never really have a chance of visiting the shores. But with all that said and done, what I don't understand, well, on some level I understand it because we are a stupefied and sedentary and sedated society in so many ways, but in other ways I don't understand the level of tyranny that has been inflicted on people, together with the, you know, the managed economic, not decline, managed and accelerating economic crash, resulting in mass inflation, hiked up mortgage rates, food price and energy price increases that are stratospherically higher than they've ever been, and taxation and regulation on people's lives, what they can do, what they can say. That combined with the actual attack on people's minds and bodies, i.e. you know, lockdown propaganda, jab, and the attack on children. That should be enough for, to be honest with you. You would expect open and violent revolution. Not that I would want that, but I would, if I was reading a historical account of these times as a neutral bystander, you know, 200 years in the future, I'd expect to turn the page and then there'd be a chapter about how the populace rose up. Well, that's not happened, and I don't want it to happen that way. I'll repeat that again. I am not an advocate for violence. I'm an advocate for a peaceful transition of power, shall we say, to the people. And I know that's a very simplistic way of describing a very, very complex thing, but you know what I'm talking about. So I find all this really, really interesting, because we're now at the point where it's so abundantly clear what the regime is doing in attempting to pin all blame on Boris Johnson and make it about him breaking lockdown rules, distracting away from the actual lockdown itself. How just was it? How scientifically sound was it? How morally and ethically centered was it? Well, not at all. You know, they're taking the piss, you know, and they really are taking the piss to such a degree, but I also think they might be running scared. You know, are they gaslighting, you know, to such extreme degrees because they feel they're completely untouchable because of the lack of rebellion from the people, or are they really running scared, and they're so deep into it now that they're getting more and more and more desperate in their attempts to cover their tracks, distract the population, as I say, to provide these very simple, just have a little look, very simple explanations. Just have a little look at this. We'll have a little break. Look at that, isn't that gorgeous? Now, I don't know what flower this is growing. There are potatoes growing behind, actually, and you know, we've got a lot of potatoes around here, just in West Lancs at the moment. There's a lot of farmland, and I've noticed the last few weeks the potato crops have really been struggling, but the last couple of days we've had quite a lot of rain, which was desperately needed, and it's just perked everything up, so that's great, isn't it? Right, okay, so we'll probably wind this video up in a minute. But I've asked you a series of questions. I'd love to find out, get your insights into, you know, into society now at the moment, but particularly with regards to personal interactions with people you know. Are they changing their tune? Can they see through it? I think most people can. I really do. Which begs the question: what are you going to do about it now? Why aren't you angry? You know, it begs these questions. What does it? How in the end will a society react that's been pushed to such untenable and intolerable points? How will it have a reckoning with itself, or how will it react? Will it be able to control its reaction? What will happen? Yeah, I think that's it really. So keep a lookout for my next video. Will be about what is propaganda, what are the tactics used by propagandists in order to lull the populace into a state of hypnosis and neurosis and psychosis. The three. How's it done? How's it happened? I'll give some examples as well. So keep a lookout for that. Hope you've been able to hear me okay, because we've still got this nagging breeze. But I've enjoyed this walk, I've enjoyed this video. Do let me know what you think. Don't forget to subscribe. And as ever, thank you for your support. And I'll speak to you soon. Cheers.